We're about to
we
get
were
started.
about to, and then you just kind of...
I've never disrupted your filming. I don't know.
You disrupted his filming today.
This is so inappropriate, Gabe. Never do this to you.
Kenny, you want to take us in, since
I will.
You know how to say his last name?
Shit.
Castiglione.
This will be a good test of friendship.
Cat.
Katniss Everdeen.
All right,
There you go.
Gabe, get out. So we're here with Chris Castiglione, Dean of OneMonth.com. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
Glad to be here.
So Chris and I have known each other for a long time. We began as bros on HeTexted.com, the hottest site of 2012, as I like to say.
It was hot.
It was real hot. We were out of General Assembly.
Yeah.
Which was a physical space back then.
Correct.
In New York, the hot spot. We were just in a hot...
It was like the...
It was a hot time of life.
Yeah, it was like a Studio 54 of nerds.
Right. Look it up, all the youths listening. But essentially, you started 1 month kind of out of that time period, right?
It is true, yeah.
Do you want to give a little overview of who you are and what you created?
Yeah, for sure. So, and I'm talking to you guys or talking to everybody watching?
You're talking to the audience.
I'm talking to the audience because I don't want to leave them out.
Through the lens of the partners of JAKK Media.
There's all these people here in this audience, and I just want to acknowledge all the people that came.
We'll say hello to our live studio. This is recorded before a live studio audience. They didn't show up, but...
Did the 47th row look under your seats? There's a free something over there.
Also some gum.
Lots of gum.
Bees. So we started 1 month in 2013. Myself and my co-founder, Matan, we were teaching at General Assembly. I was the first, and he was like among the first teachers there when coding just blew up. And everybody all of a sudden wanted to learn the code. I noticed that the first night they asked me, can you teach an HTML course? And it was just a co-working space. And I showed up to teach this. I always wanted to teach. I went to school, did my master's just because I wanted to go teach at a university. And I showed up this one night, and there was a line out the door to take this HTML course in 2011, this was. And then they said, can you do it again? And I did it the next week, and I did it the next week. And then I was doing it every night. I was doing it on the weekends. And like, there was just always a line out the door. And this is like Midtown Manhattan. And so I think at that time, General Assembly was like, wow, they're really onto something here. You know, coding's a thing. So myself and Matan, my co-founder, took it and really wanted to scale that to reach more people around the world who didn't just live in New York. And also at the time, those programs are thousands of dollars. We wanted to reach more people at a more affordable price who maybe didn't live in New York City and weren't just like, rich, affluent people living in the city. So that was our vision, to just reach as many people as possible, teaching people to code, because it's really empowering, helps you get jobs, helps you, tell the world.
It was an interesting time because I learned to code in 2009 when I was learning web coding. I did like other stuff before, and I learned from a book. Like literally I was turning pages of a book, learning PHP or whatever it was. And then fast forward, I actually took your Ruby on Rails course.
Yeah, which was the first one.
Which was the first one. Yeah. And I remember it was a hit. I was in business school when you released it, and like everyone in business school was taking this Ruby on Rails course. And I was so angry that they all got to learn to code, with such a good experience. And which
is great to hear. And maybe that was before we knew each other, right around when we met.
Same time, yeah.
But now it's the same thing. We're actually teaching you went to Columbia Business School,
right? And
now me and Matan, we both teach there. And now the language is Python that people in business school are learning. But yeah, it's interesting, kind of the way that things have evolved. It's become part of there. It was the Python course that Matan teaches was the #1. I don't know, I don't want to say best-selling, but like most, they give credits. Or I don't know how it works in business.
Most are credited?
No way.
It was like one of the top ones that people were vying for.
Those guys are even less cool than when I was there.
People love it. Yeah, people love it.
Cuba, that was #1 when I was in school.
Yeah.
So you started with a Ruby on Rails course. Yeah. That's how you launched 1 month with that course.
Yeah.
What was the rollout like as you expanded your offerings? At kind of what pace? How long was it just that? How did you, in the first few years of the company's been around for going on 6 years now. How did you decide in those initial stages kind of where to focus your time on building the courses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we definitely had some missteps and I would say like failures I can talk about along the way as far as making those choices. And there's been pros and cons along the way. We started with just Ruby on Rails because it was like the hot young language at the time. Twitter, Groupon, a bunch of startups were starting using it, and you can get started really, really quickly using it. So we took that idea and we went to ycombinator, and that's when Paul Graham, who runs ycombinator, the incubator, he's supposed to be he's one of the best company namers in the world. That's a thing. He's written blog posts about it, but he gave us the worst name. He told us to change our company name to Mr. Ruby and just to focus on Ruby.
It's really going all in on the Ruby. You can only do Ruby mining. Yeah. Ruby on Rails.
Ruby mining, yeah, exactly. Ruby slippers, doing a Wizard of Oz theme.
Yeah, you're really kind of pigeonholed there.
And I don't, and he's such a guru at it, and he really is really good at it. That we were just like, yeah, sure. And so we actually changed our name to this Mr. Ruby, and it was only within days that we were getting emails from women who were like, Mr. Ruby, rightfully so. It was very so that was a lesson learned. And also Ruby was pigeonholing us. And so it only took a month or two, and then it's a lot of work to change a business name, like DBA, and do all the certificate stuff. So then we changed, that's when we changed from 1 month Rails to Mr. Ruby to 1 month. And the idea was learn anything in 1 month. And we did HTML first. We started doing all the coding languages, which really worked. But I think the lesson learned and one of the failures that we made is that we tried to go really too broad at first.
Gotcha.
We should have really focused on just owning coding, because that's what we were. We were one of the #1 courses, if not the #1 online course for learning to code around that year. It was the #1 course on Skillshare, and up there on Udemy, and our own site was really growing month over month. But then we started doing, we were trying to become more of a business school, I think, for a few years. So since then, we've really kind of come back and doubled down on learning to code. So it's really just kind of focusing on the first month of coding, and specifically the most popular languages that can get you jobs.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where, so HTML, JavaScript, Python.
What was, besides the naming, that kind of circuitous naming arc, so you were 1 month Rails.
1 month Rails.
And then you were Mr. Ruby.
Mr. Ruby.
And then you were 1 month.
And then
You should have hired Sean Parker for 5 minutes to be just drop the Rails.
Yeah.
It's cleaner.
Yeah. It's cleaner. Just 1 month. So what was the kind of most absurd or most out there misfire you all had on a course offering that you're just in hindsight you're why did we even try that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One that just didn't work.
The hard-hitting questions.
I want to get
Tell
right
us
to
where
it.
you failed.
We're gonna build you back up over the course of the rest of the year.
Start them low.
Yeah.
And then we'll throw some softballs later.
Well, you know what is I mean, there's probably a funnier answer, but the one that comes to mind where I'm just trying to think of lessons learned. I guess that's the way I look at the past, is the failures. Out the gate, we did an iOS course because people want to make iPhone apps, right? And that class killed, man. We were doing so well with that class. But I'd say one of the biggest downfalls of that we didn't really anticipate is that Apple updates their code every year. And so the maintenance on this course was through the roof. We'd have to re-record it every year, and have tutors and everybody it was really hard to maintain. So I think that was a lesson in again, just trying to go too wide. And since then we've kind of figured out how to do that. But I think in the beginning, you think you can just tackle everything with online courses, and you're oh, we're just gonna keep making these, because you can, but thinking about maintenance over time, and especially with technology, when I compare myself to friends that have really successful online course businesses, with technology, it's changing, right? And so we veered away from the faddish, things that we consider to be faddish new languages that we know are gonna in beta or changing all the time. So when Swift came out for Apple, which is the language to create iPhone apps, we had a course before it even launched, because we were partnering with people in the beta that were working on it. And so that was awesome, because right out the gate, we had one of the first courses. But yeah, it was really hard to maintain. So I think that's how we also think about choosing courses. And it was a bit of an up and down for a year.
Something I remember too, you've gone between selling each course individually and selling kind of like a monthly subscription for all access.
Yeah.
I know you've gone back and forth, and I think you're currently at buy one off kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. Now you can buy one course, or you can buy an annual subscription.
Oh, you can do both.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are the two ways to do it.
And I know a lot of people struggle with that. Try to think about like how to price their stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, recurring is great, but how long are they going to stay?
Sure.
If they've learned Ruby, will they want to learn Python or HTML or whatever else you're offering? Like, how have you guys tackled that over the years? And do you have any advice for people like kind of thinking about?
Pricing is really tough, and I definitely don't pretend to like come here and be like, hey, this is how you do pricing, because I feel like it's different for every product, service, and I think it's the kind of thing you have to experiment and really learn the market and also like what people are willing to pay. So I would say it's definitely something we've struggled with and do a lot of testing on. Things that just weren't working for us was we'd had different courses that were different prices, and I don't know, people were always confused, why one course would be more than another course. Some of our courses come with mentorship, some of our courses have testing, but like on the front page, it's like hard to see all that. It's really hard to explain that value proposition for every one of our courses. So to us, the subscription model of the annual subscription, people seem to be getting it more clearly. Like, oh, I just get everything. I think people just want access, and there's a bit of a people, I guess they feel a little hesitant when you have to, am I going to binary? Am I going to buy this or not buy this? But if you get access to everything at a fair price, I think people are seeming to be more or less confused about what they're getting. So that's kind of why we arrived away from the multiple prices, all the price tiers and stuff like that. I'm just this one annual price now. So access to everything. Easier.
Tying in with that as well, when I'm thinking about pricing, I know you guys have a great blog, you have a YouTube channel people like, other channels. So you have some free content, and you've obviously got the paid content. So where to draw the line is always the tough part as well. Have you guys thought intensely about that and how you've handled it with your courses?
Yeah. I don't know that there's at the end of the day, we want people to learn. Our mission is to help millions of people learn how to code. We want to make it easy for them. And there's challenges along the way of, that kind of like funnel of like someone needs to find us. They need to be educated enough to know the difference between the different languages, choose the course, complete the course. And so we look at the data across that whole process of like getting someone into the right course and then like completing the course. And those are different challenges. Internally, once they come take the course with us, we really want to provide them with like the best, most fun experience to keep them entertained, but also challenged, but then to help them complete the course. That's really our goal. And so one way that we do that is like by not having tons of, you go to like Lynda or Pluralsight, which are, great services that I would say are, competitive to us. But they're marketplaces and they have like 5 Ruby courses and 7 Python courses. Then I think you show up and you're like, which one do I do? And you end up doing like half of every one and you maybe don't learn anything. So what we've done is like all of our content is curated. Me and Matan have made it all or have worked on all of it with special outside help. And so it's more like a college where everything is really curated and we really just want to get to the end. So internally, we have really set, like a college, like really set curriculum. And that's pretty much set. We update it, we help fine tune it. And then a lot of the time is just getting people educated on the outside of like what to expect when they get in here. So I guess what I'm saying is like a lot of that core is there and we update it, but we do spend a lot of time on the free content as well because it's important for people who aren't students of ours yet to be educated. And that's kind of where that part comes in, the free content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kenny mentioned that 10 years ago when he was learning coding, he was learning it from literally a book, like a physical book. And then, in 2011, 12, 13, we saw the proliferation of online courses for everything. It was, now you see people, we're kind of past the point now where people are surprised by seeing online courses about how to do online courses, on how to make money off online courses, which is like, the Russian nesting doll of online courses you see advertised.
Right. You're like, why are you making this online course if you're so rich? Or like, do you really, I don't know.
But we've seen kind of the growth of that, and I feel like the public has been exposed to the fact that like online courses, especially for something like coding, like they are a thing. Most people know that now. How do you see expectations on your actual content? How has that changed from when maybe you were a younger company and people came in and maybe they weren't as aware of these online offerings? Now people have different expectations for content we produce on our sites, content they read on any site. Do people kind of have preconceived notions of the experience they want to have now?
The one thing that's a little bit tricky, if you're trying to teach an online course where there is a lot of competition or different voices in that field, is that people are going to shop around. And so they're going to have more expectations. And I think it's hard to value, like as a consumer or student, whatever, coming to the course to like, how do you value online course, right? And what I mean by that is, like a lot of the critique or questions that we get from people who don't know us is like, how are you different than Udemy? And Udemy, they sell their courses for like $50 to $99, but they undercut all of them to like pennies to $9. So you can go there any day and buy a $9 course. And so sometimes people will be like, well, you know, why are you guys more? So we have to kind of justify the value proposition that we have testing and that we have rigor and that we have tutors and all this kind of stuff. So only to say, like, I think people are shopping around when they don't know what to expect, when there's so many different options. So yeah, we get that all the time. It's really hard. But I know a lot of friends of mine that are in fields where there isn't competition, and I know that people are much more likely to just pull the trigger. Gotcha. Like I know that you bought a podcasting course.
I did.
Can I talk about that?
I knew everything right away.
Wait, are you saying that you had performance enhancing help on getting this podcast together? Cut the tape.
Years ago, when you were trying to learn, you did.
I learned from a stone actually that I bought from a wise man on a hill. When we were preparing for the podcast, I was looking for general information and just how to make it good. And I stumbled on Pat Flynn's podcast, who has a great blog that I've followed for years. And it was a pretty good course. And he nothing earth-shattering, but I was just kind of like, all right, there it is. Got it all in one spot. And it was nice. And I mentioned it to Chris because there wasn't any competition. They're like, it was like his course or, there's blog articles and stuff that give you advice. But there was no beginning to end to launch and post-launch course. And so I bought it because I was like,
I think when there's fewer options, and that was kind of what we had in our conversation about that course, because I think it's really interesting. And I think when there's fewer options, you're less like picky, or you're more willing to just make the purchase because you don't know how to value it. I think there's findability is really valuable, being able to find something that just like fits your. So I have friends who are doing courses in like memorization or like make your pleasure your wife or stuff like this is true. So I think if you have like a really niche thing that's not like learn English or learn coding, I think it's going to be, you probably, the content can be a lot more niche, and I think you're going to have I would imagine a lot less friction from what I've heard. Sounds weird to talk about friction in the course name I just mentioned. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
I think it's tough to define how broad your niche is going to be. Like you mentioned, earlier, you wanted to start own coding, but then iOS was like, and Swift, that was something that was like maybe too broad or maybe too far outside the scope of what you were doing. Like how broadly you define your niche, it's something we work on quite a bit, and we're constantly second guessing and tweaking because we do niche content. That's what we do. But how broad is that for Barbend? Is it strength sports? Is it strength training? Yeah, it's a tough question.
It really is. I mean, it's almost illogical because it is coding. Like, I mean, in that case that I mentioned, I mean, it was just that. Yeah, it was just hard to do the iOS thing. I mean, it's not that we couldn't do it. A lot of our competitors, I mean, it's possible to do for sure. But we're just a small startup, and I think when we were maybe like 5 people at that time. So it's like when you're doing that, you just have only such limited resources. So I think a bigger company could probably definitely manage that, but it's just like when you're small and scrappy, I think you have to figure out what you're gonna double down on. And I think like finding your niche, like making websites and web apps and web scripting, like anything on the web was like really what people are coming to us for, right. And like we knew that, and so we've reassembled around that.
We find ourselves kind of constantly tweaking how our content is targeted based on the end goal of our readers and of our users.
Oh, tell me, yeah.
It's for example, that you might come to a site and think, well, iOS, that's that's coding, right? I might think as someone who doesn't really know how to code, okay, Ruby on Rails, iOS, like that's all under one umbrella. But you just mentioned they might be coming to be web developers, but mobile developers might be just a different intent entirely. Yeah. It might be a different population entirely.
Definitely overlap, but there is exactly. There's and that's maybe discerning who you're going to focus on. Yeah.
I mean, I think the course landscape has evolved to be a very niche thing as well. Like you operate in these really big competitive space, like learning to code. Everyone would be like, obviously, there's a course for that, right? And the courses you mentioned is like, oh, it's kind of a new thing in humanity, where like an expert or a developed expert is showing up and teaching you something very specific, right? And it's just because like, hey, now we have an iPhone, and just like, I'm sure when 1 month launched, you built the course infrastructure yourselves, right? Like where people interact with you and comment, and now you can go and buy a plugin or pay, $20 a month and have all that set up for you. So it's like making a course about something is really, the technical side of it is really solved.
Which is great.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing all these like niche courses.
When we started.
Yeah.
For sure.
And what's interesting is you see all these courses pop up, which is cool. And what you always say to me, and I see ads, and I don't know if it's true or not, but you see the dollar amount that people are making on these courses, where it's like, hey, I have this, I'm crocheting with this type of special yarn, and they make like $1 million a year teaching people that, and you're like, what? Like who? But it's an interesting landscape, and it's like, how do you even define like where you should go if you can just go so narrow and have such great success, right? Like how do you think about 1 month and where it's going in the future beyond like what you're doing now?
Yeah, I would be really happy for 1 month to just focus on learning the code. And I think there's still just a lot of different, there's a lot of different places to go into, it's a little confusing. So I think for us, like we just try to focus on the first month. We don't pretend or promise to be the entire life cycle of learning. So if you come and you want to become a Python developer, like we're the best place to start. And then we're also going to educate you on where to go next. That's part of the challenge. As a learner myself, and you taught yourself how to code, and like we're all kind of scrappy here. If you think about the way you learn, or the way I learned as well in my history, it's like I used many books. I talk to people, and you go to university, you take a class, you can do a bunch of things, and that's your body of knowledge. And the marketing aspect of a lot of these coding boot camps is like, just come to us, and we're gonna like 0 to 60 get you a job, and everything's gonna be great. And what we're finding is, if you look at the results of those over the past few years, like they're not delivering. Because it's not easy to do. You can't just put someone in one classroom for 3 months and guarantee that like 80% of that classroom is going to actually get jobs. But everybody learns at different rates, and there's lots of material that's out there. I think you have to figure out what works for you. And so again, like that's what we're trying to focus on, is like we like to say it's like hanging out with a friend at the bar. Like we're casual. We're gonna like sit that our classes are like we know where you're coming from. You're brand new to this. And we're also gonna, like I said, educate you where to go next, and along the way, like what websites to use, what books to use, what resources to use. We're not pretending that like it all has to happen within the vacuum of 1 month, So I think that's what makes us a little bit different, and also why, I'm happy to really just kind of focus on that niche, and then let people also explore beyond us, like whatever they need beyond that. Yeah.
What are it could be within the education and course space, or it could be, separate from that. What is an outlet that you look to as an example of a place that's kind of pushing the envelope in a good way on producing really great and engaging content?
Courses specifically, or
It doesn't have to be. It could be courses
Yeah.
specifically. It could be like a competitor, and this is like you're shouting out saying we're coming for you. No, or it could be. It could be just more general. It could be someone. Could be a YouTube creator. Could be a brand that's doing cross-platform stuff. Just somewhere you look and you're like, the content they produce is really like.
yeah.
It's really engaging to me.
I mean, yeah, my mind really goes wide on that. There's so many, when we say content, I feel like it means so many different things. But I mean, one company that I've always been just like had a crush on would be Wistia. Do you guys know Wistia?
Yeah, yeah.
They did a video out of Boston. I mean, they just really found a niche. It's interesting when a niche becomes like a thing too, because before they existed, I wasn't like, hey, I really need more videos on learning how to use cameras. Like there's like a ton on YouTube, but then they made these videos about how to use video equipment, and they just did it in such a great way with storytelling and like personality that now that I've seen like 100 of their videos, I can't ever like, I would never go to anywhere else, you know? And I think they've really won the trust on that and the authority and like, and so now in my mind, they're, you know, in the way that we might associate, some people might associate newsletters with like MailChimp, or maybe a little less so this year, but maybe when they started, you know, I feel like there's like these iconic brands that really kind of like take over a niche. And so, yeah, their videos, I mean, if you're thinking about making content or you want to learn how to, I think their videos and their whole brand, the whole feeling of it is really, just really genuine and fun. They do a great job of that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, any parting words for our listeners, and do tell us where they can learn more about you and 1 month.
Yeah. Is this when I look at the camera?
Look at the camera.
Everybody's such a jerk for saying that. Okay. So 1month.com that's it. And I'm on Twitter. It's at Castig. And you can even email me. It's chris@onemonth.com.
Oh, you're gonna spam for sure.
Is that really?
Yeah, we have a lot of bot.
So many
we have a lot of bot
this.
listeners. Yeah,
They're pretty much all bot listeners and parents at this point.
Great. We can help kids learn how to code. Teenagers, college kids, whatever. Bring them.
My mom's gonna follow up with you on that crocheting course.
wow,
Wonderful. You just wait. Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, it's my course. So I was shout out to kennycrochets.com as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's awesome learning about your journey and looking forward to seeing what's next for you.
This has been really fun. Thanks, guys.
Always a great shake at the end.
I call it the Kenny Klein shake. You got to put your hand a little more like horizontal.